FasCat podcast. I'm your host, Frank Overton. Some call me the Big Cat. And as always, I'm joined with Jackson Long.
Hello, everyone.
In the house.
How
are you?
I'm good. I'm great. It's always that week before the race kind of scramble. Like my bike's in the shop. I've been getting all my last minute food, trying to organize the logistical schedule of when I'm going to leave on Friday. And yeah, so it's
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, down to the wire.
I ordered my nutrition from thefeed.com.
Nice.
Used Phil sent me for 10% off. Got my untapped maple for the last hour of the race.
Nice.
Got my Goo cold brew also for 30 minutes to go. Excuse me. And then I am going up in a Sprinter van that I rented.
Ooh,
yeah.
Big baller rolling.
Yeah, van life.
Van life.
I'll be in the House and Hill parking lot.
Yeah.
I do believe one person from the forum asked where I was parking. That's where I'll be. That is literally, as the crow flies, 100 feet from the start line.
Nice.
It's literally right across this little bridge across the Yampa River, and I don't think you can find a better place to
That's legit.
to sleep.
Just roll out of bed straight onto the bike.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I have Sprinter van envy.
Yeah. I'm a little nervous for the race, I'm not going to lie, but it's just a long day.
It's going to be a long day.
It's going to be a long day, so I'm just going to
I think
take it a day or a minute at a time.
If you just are patient with yourself and are just in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
I think not getting caught up in that first 1 hour
sprint,
the massive bike race, and just you're in for a long day of riding your bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it'll be good. So we hope to see plenty of you out there. I think it'll be good. Come say hi.
Yeah, I'm going to do the 8 a.m. chamois butter openers ride on Saturday, and then I'll be in the expo area and then at the rider meeting at 3:20.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So what are we podcasting about this week?
Today is a long overdue Q&A session. We usually try to do these once a month, and I think we missed it in July probably, but we're back on, and as a result, we're going to keep this intro short because we have 20-something questions.
We thank you all for submitting
21.
your questions. We have 21 curated questions. They're awesome. Really good questions. Probably the best user submitted questions ever. Some really funny ones that we'll get into.
From the forum, from email, a little social media action, and kind of a good gamut across the board of different questions that hopefully will help everyone involved watching or listening to this podcast. So
yeah. So should we get into it?
I say we just roll right into it.
All right. Yeah. So Ask a FasCat podcast starting now.
Action. All right, number one from Richard Williams asks, hello, I just listened to the RPI podcast, even though I'm a strict roadie. It got me thinking, what if Frank partnered with Phil to do a similar session on the Cookie Fondo? Good idea, right? Winky face emoji.
I think that's a great idea. Let's just give Phil a call and see what he says. I talked to him yesterday, and he said he was filming all day. He's at the Tour of Utah, but
has it started yet?
He said he was busy most of the day, but I thought we might be able to catch him. But I think that's a great idea, Richard, and I'm sure we can set it up. I did the Cookie Fondo with Phil 2 years ago. It's a beast of a ride. I did the chocolate chip. I did not do the double fudge, which is what Phil recommends. Okay, Phil is busy YouTubing.
Maybe he'll call us.
Maybe he'll call us back. Yeah.
But yeah, we could definitely do that.
That would be super fun. Maybe if we get a Sprinter van, we'll drive it out there and podcast in Malibu. Oh. That would be the van life.
Yeah, I've never done his Fondo, but I've ridden a lot of those roads. So it's some of the best riding in the States.
It's amazing.
So.
I think it's Deer Creek Canyon and Latigo, and Mulholland Drive. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. We did this one climb. We were coming down, and you're looking at the ocean, and you could see dolphins in the water as you're descending.
It's like, what is this?
Wow.
All right. Well, maybe we'll get Phil a little bit later. But all right, well, moving on. Kind of rip through these. Number two from Leonard Fritz, I just started cyclocross intervals advanced plan. The program calls for doing the training on a mock cyclocross course and gives me certain watts to hit for training.
Oh, yeah.
With all the turns, it is difficult to keep watts elevated. Here's the main part of it. What should I focus on? The watts, and do the plan on a different route, or continue the route but not hit the recommended watts?
Yeah. What Leonard is talking about is the hot laps workout, and we give everyone a visual of that hot laps workout, and it's represented in the Training Peaks workout builder, and so it's a graphical representation. I'm gonna see if I can't pull it up for everyone real quick. And so he asked about holding the watts. The answer is don't worry about that. Ride as fast as you can, because when you do a technical skill or you're running or something, that you're not making any watts, you're coasting. What you're working on is just the concept of the way one lap feels. It starts with a sprint, and then it settles into zone 6. And then when you get off the line and settled into the race pace, then it gets into, here's what we're talking about for those of you watching. If you look at this workout, it's right here. It's full gas at 200%, and then zone 6 for 45 seconds, zone 5 for 2 minutes. And Leonard's asking about it's difficult to hold that. And of course it is. We just want to show you a visual representation of that. By all means, you're not going to be able to replicate that on course. So sorry for the confusion there, but that's a really good question.
All right, next question from Steve Ahern. Sorry if I butcher anyone's name on this podcast. That's my bad. Love the podcast, love the training plans. When I went in the kitchen and hit my goal for weight and FTFP, my weight goes down, but my body composition stays the same. Do you have any tips for masters athletes looking to reduce their body fat percentage?
Yeah. So the first thing, Steve, good job winning in the kitchen, and that's probably the biggest step. So if you're doing that, we know you're, healthy lifestyle, you're getting good recovery nutrition, eating more vegetables, all that stuff. So that is on the spot. The biggest thing I think you probably should do if you're interested in losing body fat percentage is go get that measured. And the body fat scales, I'm not talking about that. Go to a lab, go to your doctor, go to
Get a DEXA scan.
DEXA scan is good. Calipers are the gold standard. That's where you pinch. It's called a skin fold. You take basically 5 pinches on your abdomen, the back of your tricep, your pec, your quad, things like that, and then do that at the beginning, and then eat right, went in the kitchen for 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and then go back and measure that again. If you've been losing weight and your body fat percentage stays the same, the only thing that you can lose is muscle mass. That is bad. Right. You don't want to lose any muscle mass from dieting. That's going to decrease your power output. You want to maintain or increase your power output and decrease your denominator, and that's body fat percentage. You can't lose bone, and water weight is going to be about what it is. So fat is what you want to do, but you got to go get a body fat percentage test.
Yeah, I was gonna just to kind of expand on that. Just say how do you know your body composition is staying the same? What are you using?
Right.
What are you using to measure that? Definitely be careful with that, because a lot of things are the
scales.
It's just wrong.
Yeah,
and so obviously weight training in the off season is going to help to increase that the muscle to fat ratio. But I wouldn't worry too long, and just like we were saying, this is a long-term process. It's a year-long kind of venture to do body composition, and it doesn't happen overnight. So I think if you're winning in the kitchen, you're training hard, you're gonna be on a good path.
That's right. And if you're lifting weights and you're gaining weight and you're worried about that, that's the good kind of weight gain. That's muscular.
So you'll be burning
mass.
some fat as well. And so, yeah. Cool.
Cool.
All right. Number 4, Casper from Copenhagen, Denmark.
Woohoo!
So cool. First of all, 10 stars for your podcast. Thank you.
Thanks, Casper.
To improve FTP long term, at the moment I'm 315 watts of FTP, average 350 TSS a week this year, around 300 TSS per week the last 2 years. Around 3 to 6 hours a week with sweet spot and high intensity intervals. He's balancing family, work, and racing. Mm-hmm. So his question is, what path of training would you suggest going forward to improve FTP further? 1, more sweet spot, higher intervals. 2, focusing on longer rides of 3 to 5 hours every other week, or use my commute to get some more TSS, but this is only rides of max an hour.
Yes to all the above, Casper. The biggest thing that jumps out to me from your question is you are getting 350 TSS a week. And if you want to continue to progress, you need to provide a progressive overload. So now you need to think about getting up into 500, 600, 700 TSS a week. And that's just a nerdy way of saying you need to ride more, and that's going to be the lowest hanging fruit for the next level of improving and progression. And you're already on the right track. Sweet spot. Make sure you do intervals. Sometimes if you're time crunched, you can progress more by just doing like more VO2s, more anaerobic work. And the other thing I would add to that is periodize your training. So if you're doing 350 TSS year round, no wonder why you're plateauing. Think in terms, lay out your training plan and divide it up into like 4 parts, like the seasons: fall, winter, spring, summer. And so in the fall, that's kind of your off season. That's where you want to be lifting weights. And in the winter, that's when you want to be doing your base. Maybe being in Copenhagen, I know y'all are like super bike friendly, but maybe not so good for the 4-hour rides. Save those 4-hour rides on the weekends, and thus the 500, 600, 700 TSSs for the spring. And then in the summer, you can even, then you're doing your intervals, then you're kind of capitalizing on your performance. And ride more intervals, weight lift.
Yep.
Yes.
Cool.
Thanks, Casper.
All right, number 5 from K-Dog and Mrs. K-Dog of the infamous gravelcyclist.com.
I love this couple. They are hilarious.
Yeah, they're great. And excited to meet them at Steamboat. They're going to be racing the Black Course, 140 miles this weekend at Steamboat. We'll see you there.
Yes, we will.
And they've done several of the gravel programs, continue to do so. Question is this. I understand the rationale for FTFP, but at 64 years old, is it okay to add in some upper body lightweight lifting and core exercises twice a week for an hour or so?
I'm giving a thumbs up while Jackson's reading.
I don't do any leg workouts during the race season unless on one of your plans. I do this to keep my bones strong and to keep Mrs. K-Dog happy. No man boobs allowed. What do you think? P.S. We live in Florida, 350 feet above sea level, but occasionally race above 8,000 feet. Besides riding into a hurricane in the big ring, our team of idiots actually did this once. Do you have any suggestions on how to prepare for mountains locally? So I guess the two main questions, upper body stuff and altitude. So.
But K-Dog, you are not alone in asking about upper body lifting. And totally okay. A couple of caveats though. Well, first of all, it's very important you keep Miss K-Dog happy. So
that's priority number one.
Priority number one. A teammate once told me, happy wife, happy life. Okay? So kudos for your commitment to that. Second of all, upper body is totally fine. You can still FTFP and add your upper body exercises. You just want to make sure that you're not taking time away from bike riding and you're not adding additional stress into your otherwise balanced training so that you are tired for your workouts. And I don't think that's the case. You're probably talking about, 5 or 10 minutes or something like that. Don't be doing, body weight bench presses and pyramids or, hardcore. That when you add muscle mass and, to your upper body, that is decreasing your power to weight ratio. And so that's going to decrease your performance on these 8,000, what you ask in the second part of your question.
Climbs.
But that's okay. It's probably more important to keep Miss K-Dog happy.
And you don't want to look like Chris Froome too. I mean,
Totally.
So like my latest thing
Yeah.
is I've been rock climbing a lot, as you can tell from how
Whoa,
jacked
look at
I
his
am.
guns.
I was like, sorry, I just don't need to alarm anyone here, but sometimes I'll go for like on some of my like easier ride days, I'll go ride, and then that evening go to the climbing gym with some friends. It's a very social thing. Maybe you and Miss K Dog could do it together. It's fun, and it's not like huge weight. You see rock climbers. They're pretty lean. They're pretty, because it is also a power to weight sport, but you still get a little bit of toning and a little bit of like, you just look good, and without having like huge guns like me. I mean,
you don't need to like get like the Rock. I mean,
Right.
you're gonna climb like a rock if you look like the Rock. I will say to the climbing thing, there's a lot of things you could do to kind of tone up that doesn't involve just weightlifting, and one of which is yoga, which I'm a huge fan of. If you look at some of the men that do yoga regularly, they are ripped, and maybe that's your no man boobs solution, or something like that. When you yoga, you're doing planks, you're doing all sorts of movements that are really good for the upper body, good for the core, the back, and everything. So maybe try that. If you're on our plans, we give you a free Yoga Globe membership, and we actually say do yoga on Mondays and Fridays.
Cool.
Good question. Oh, with regards to preparing for the climbing races and being in Florida, other than riding into a hurricane, stationary trainer is not bad. Power is power. If you're doing threshold power up a climb, that's great. Physiologically, I think it's as the same as if you're doing it on a stationary trainer, or if you can find a road that is conducive to making that threshold power. And since I know you guys travel all over the U.S. to do races, if you find yourself with the ability to get up to like the North Georgia mountains, there's super training there. So maybe a road trip for the weekend to get up there to do some climbing work.
Cool. All right, number 6 from Ryan Krabby. I was in an accident at the end of June. I've done 6 months of FasCat plans stacked on each other and was getting ready to start 6 weeks to Leadville. Just had shoulder surgery. How do I get back to training, or what's the best plan for restarting? Second part of his question from his son. He listens to all the shows with me and wants to know what a junior cyclist can do for regular training at 10 to 11 years old. His favorite cycling discipline is cyclocross. Very cool.
Right. Yeah, super cool. Well, thanks for your question, Ryan. And sorry about your accident in your shoulder. I think the best plan for restarting is to take a big picture view of what you're training for in 2020. Just knowing that if you were doing Leadville, that now we're kind of at the end of our season, and it's going to be the off season before we know about it. In fact, we're probably going to be podcasting about off season training within the next couple weeks. So I would take a big picture view. What are you doing? Divide your training up into the fall. We call it the fall foundation. And then what are you going to be doing this early fall, early winter? That's when you want to, lift weights. And then, as part of like our 32-week off-season training plan, you kind of want to be doing base in January through March-ish. And then depending on what your goals are, then you look at the timing of when you lift weights, when you do your base, and the timing of that in relation to the next time you want to be fast in 2020. What I see a lot of athletes do right around this time of year is our weather is great, but there's no racing, for road and mountain. And they're gung-ho on training, and they just get started, and they build up this huge base, and then the winter hits, and you can't maintain it. And then by February, they're a little burnt out, and that's what we call the group ride hero. And so the other thing is life balance, and give a little bit of balance back to other areas of your life in the fall and the winter, and then really go gung-ho with like the weightlifting and the base in the winter and spring, for example.
Yeah, I think I would just echo that and just say that I think reframing it mentally is huge. Like instead of saying, oh man, like I've just wasted like the rest of this year, instead say in your mind, like, wow, I have now all this extra time to kind of like get ready and prepare and have just like a longer, base season or whatever it may be. And of course, the end of summer and fall, depending on where you live, is a great time, like you said, to do other things. I like to go hiking or, backpacking or camping, with your family. Great time of year to do that. That doesn't require being on a bike, but still keeps you active and moving. Especially doing, hiking and backpacking, good for the bone density and stuff like that. So, just reframing it mentally is huge.
Yeah, and the best plan for restarting is probably before you get on a plan and commit to following a plan, probably do some just basic unstructured bike rides.
Yeah.
Do those with your son, do those for fun. And then once you feel like you've gotten to a good space where you're able to ride consistently without pain, you're feeling a little bit of fitness, then you're probably ready to get back into a plan. And then you probably want to look at it in like, what is the time of year in relation to your goals for next year? It could be this fall. I have a lot of athletes that want to do something in the fall, but they're not racing until 2020. And it could be like, what we were podcasting about, Strava vols.
Yeah.
Doing something like that. It could be hopping in a cyclocross race. It could be, I call them fall foliage rides, where you go and look at all the aspens and the pretty trees, something like that. And then, so for the second part of your question, with regards to your son, hey, what's up? Thanks for listening. 10 to 11 years old, the biggest thing I would emphasize is make sure it's fun. And then, for goodness sakes, do not follow a training plan. And until you get to be about 16 or 17, you really want to emphasize skills. And I mention this because your favorite discipline is cyclocross. Well, the best way is just practice your skills. We had that bunny hopping video.
Yeah, the training will come.
The training will come, and it shouldn't come until you mature. And the best way, honestly, is go ride with your friends. Like, if you talk to any experienced coach that has experience with juniors and has seen them progress and move on and go on to be successful, they will tell you, and I'll echo this, is ride with friends and get involved in a junior cycling program. So here in Boulder, we're fortunate to have Boulder Junior Cycling. And I don't remember where y'all live, but if you do live anywhere near Boulder, enroll in one of their programs. They have a cyclocross program. It is 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds out there doing real skills work, but they're keeping it fun. And, these are how, Coach Brandon and I have joked is how little Ninos.
Yeah.
But that's what we call the little Groms, the little kids. It's like you get good at your skills when you're young, and then when you get into your 20s, that's when you do the training.
Right.
And, Matthew Vanderpool, Sven Nys, Wout van Aert, they were practicing their skills and ripping around in the woods and having fun when they were 10 and 11. And so that's my biggest thing. Just make sure it's fun. Don't force it, don't follow a training plan, no power meter, nothing like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Moving on, Jamie Cervantes. If a workout on a plan says full gas for, say, 30 seconds and also specifies a power in the workout, say 490 watts, and I can actually hold 700 to 800 watts for all the intervals, is that all good, even though my TSS will end up being much higher than the workout predicts?
Jamie also sent us this meme of you underestimate my power, and Jackson let me know that is that Anakin?
Anakin Skywalker, baby.
Okay. This is a great question.
That's mini Darth Vader, for those of you that don't know.
I did not know that.
That's pre-Darth.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess I just spoiled Star Wars. Have you not seen Star Wars?
I couldn't convince my daughters to go with me. I've seen 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, so you know who Darth Vader is.
I saw the original Star Wars in the theater.
That's what Darth Vader looks like before he's Darth Vader.
Okay.
If you underestimate my power, he's turning to the dark side in this moment.
Okay. Well, Jamie, don't go over to the dark side, but it's a funny question. However, it's extremely important. So what Jamie is asking about is full gas and the difference between full gas and then not going full gas.
Yeah.
And I always tell athletes, don't let a piece of software limit you and tell you what you can and can't do. When we're talking about full gas, that's doing that by feel. And Jamie, I think in his question says, what if I can do 700 to 800 watts for all the intervals? It's like, hell yeah, you do that. And what that means is, well, A, you're anaerobically gifted. B, you're very motivated. That's awesome. And then C, because you are doing 700 watts for your 30-second intervals, you're going to get a greater training benefit from doing that than limiting your power output from the software that may say 375 to 490 watts.
Yeah.
And so some athletes are like that, and that's why we always preach full gas over just a workout prescription. Even with those zone 6 intervals, I do prescribe a fairly wide range. Like zone 6 is going to be 120% of your FTP all the way up to like 180 or 200%. And the other thing, Jamie, is you may want to check your FTP, see if you had it set correctly. So, but yeah, 700-800 watts, that's you're going to have a good cyclocross season.
All right. Number 8 from FasCat athlete Rob Frederick from Eastern Pennsylvania.
Oh, yes.
Appreciate and enjoy the content. Regarding the upcoming Steamboat Gravel Race, many of us will be participating in elevation for the first time. Is one metric better to look at than another, i.e. heart rate versus power, and to what degree should we expect either to be impacted, 3%, 10%, etc.? Interested in knowing in order to adjust expectations and pacing.
Yeah. All right. Good question, Rob. The athletes have been coming up to altitude to race, like here in Colorado or Utah, for years, and it's kind of a thing. And 2 years ago, Coach Jake wrote this training tip we have on our website. It's the effect of racing at altitude. And back then, we frequently have athletes that come up to race Leadville 100, Firecracker 50, Tour of Utah, the Oat Root Rockies, just to name a few. And in fact, I just had an athlete from Wilmington, North Carolina, nearly go sub 8 at Leadville. Wow. And, one of the things that he just accepted on the start line was that he just wasn't going to be as fast as he was at home in North Carolina. And you really just don't know how the altitude is going to affect you. In this article that Coach Jake wrote, we reference a scientific paper from FasCat, and it is a pretty renowned examination of the effects of altitude on people. And I've pulled up this here for the video watchers, the viewers, and basically what FasCat and his group of researchers found was for every 1,000 feet you go up in altitude, your power output is going to be about 1% less. Now that's generalizing it. It could be 0.3 or more, but like if you come up 5,000 feet, your power output may be affected 3 to 8%, just depending on individualization. You really don't know. Oh, look, Phil is calling us. Hi, Phil.
Hey, buddy, how we doing?
We're doing great. We're podcasting, and we had a listener ask us if we would do a Cookie Fondo Course Recon podcast with you.
Yeah, I'm into that. I like that.
Yeah.
Have you ridden that course before, Phil? You feel confident in breaking it down?
Yeah,
a couple times?
I'll have to brush up and do some homework.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, we'll get it on our podcast schedule because I've ridden it when I did it with you a couple years ago. I think we did the chocolate chip route, right?
The chocolate chip is the default. Yeah, if the crazy people do the double fudge, and the people who want a little lighter day do the sugar cookie.
Nice. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll have my people contact your people.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, because we both have people. That's not fake at all.
How was the tour of Utah?
Good. I rode yesterday. We're doing some filming today around Park City. Doing a little most retirement ever action. And it's always a good time. Park City's nice this summer. It's not some crappy Boulder,
Yeah, Boulder's too hot these days. It's like 95
hot
today.
Yes.
I had to throw it. Oh, it's super hot here. No, it's 90s here for sure.
Well, awesome, Phil. Thanks for calling us back, and we'll do this Cookie Fondo podcast here soon.
No problem. That sounds great.
Thanks, man.
All right, later. Bye, Frank.
Cheers. Okay. Wow. What a surprise.
Phil.
Fantastic. Sorry for interrupting, Rob. I think the point I was going to make is, so this athlete, just, we talked about it. We knew that the altitude was going to affect him physiologically. We didn't really talk about a metric or a heart rate or a power number. This athlete has raced, these endurance races before, and really you just get out there and you just got to do it. And I don't really think there's anything that you want to look at that is different at altitude than it is in any of your other races. In terms of managing expectations and all that,
Everyone's in the same boat. Part.
Exactly.
Like especially something like Leadville or something. It's you're basically at 10,000 plus feet the whole day. Mm-hmm. Everyone's suffering. Even us, that live at altitude. When we go up and ride at that elevation, we still are suffering. And I'd say, at least from my perspective, I'm a little bit more sort of like Jedi a little bit, where I don't like to look at my numbers when I'm in a race. The hay is in the barn. You've done the training. Mm-hmm. It's not really productive to like focus on your power or heart rate too much, especially when you're at altitude, because everything kind of gets thrown out of the window. It's just perceived effort is so different. And that's the best thing to go off of, because I've done rides up to Mount Evans and Trail Ridge or whatever, and had a power meter on there and just looking at it and it's like demoralizing.
Oh yeah.
And so it's better to just ride and just feel how you feel, and
so
that way.
Rate of perceived exertion, your RPE, your perceived exertion, you gave me flashbacks of racing Mount Evans. Yeah. I mean, when you get like up to 13,000 feet, I remember glancing at my power meter and I'm doing 160 watts. Yeah. It's like, but it feels like you're doing 400, down at where you live. And so that perceived exertion is going to be a much better indicator of your effort. And I think, Rob, that's what you just want to race off of. And I know that like this day and age of like technology and power meters and sports science, so we all want like some good, hard, clean facts. But honestly, I think you just get out there and you just do what you're good at. I mean, you've raced the dirty cans at 200. I mean, this 140 miles is going to be a drop in the bucket, Yeah. Just do it on perceived exertion. Power is going to be lower, we think. Who knows? Maybe you won't be affected by the altitude that much. Yeah. You really don't know till you get out there and just, kind of just get into it and start doing it. And that's my best piece of advice. The other thing you don't really want to do is be looking at something and thinking about something, when you really should be thinking about just keeping moving forward, really concentrating on in your head, just, finishing, kind of, I think you want to get into like self-talk and like, come on, you can do this. I don't think you want to be looking at, wow, my heart rate is 3% less and now it's 4% less or anything like that. That's too much to be thinking about. I think you want to be looking at the terrain, staying with the group ahead of you, remembering to eat and drink every 30 minutes. I mean, if you're worrying about your power, your heart rate, you might forget some of those things. And so, you be more Zen-like and do it on perceived exertion. Yeah.
All right. Number 9 from Patrick Brock. I have a non-traditional work schedule. I work 4 days on, followed by 2 days off, which makes for having off for weekend group rides difficult, and these are often in the plan. Works out to around 2 weekends off every 6 to 7 weeks. To add to that, it's a third shift schedule. I know my body well, and that I require a consistent routine to fully recover. So I keep the same sleep schedule throughout my days off, unless there are other life requirements with the family, races, etc. So questions: is it feasible to adapt the training plan to this type of schedule, or is it best to remain on the traditional schedule? How would a FasCat training plan be adapted to this type of schedule? Right now he's kind of maintaining the traditional style plans, adding extra credit during the week for endurance, slightly shortening stuff depending.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Patrick. in this similar situation as a lot of athletes that have a non-traditional schedule? And the answer is, really simply is, you move the long rides from the training plan, to the days you don't work on in your schedule. So you can do that very easily in Training Peaks. You can edit the plans on your own. It's really just left click, drag and drop, and that's editable. And then, if you want any help beyond that, we do offer a coaching subscription. And then if it gets complicated, this is when having a coach and hiring a coach would be advantageous to really take a look at, the whole week and the whole month, and then also the big picture.
A little more personalized.
Yeah. Like I've worked with, doctors that do like, they'll do like 3 days on where it's like, they'll be like on it's like a 36-hour shift, and then some doctors, depending on what kind of specialty they are, like if they're in emergency room, maybe they do 12 on, 12 off, for like 5 days in a row, and then they're off for the equivalent 5 days in a row, so they can barely train during the middle of that shift, but then they have 5 days off. So that's a custom training solution. It's very easy. Shift workers are the same thing. I think, if you work like graveyard shift, if you're if you are a fireman or ambulance, I have one 20-something athlete. He is in EMT, and so he'll have overnight shifts. It's just really just moving things around, and it's like a custom solution. But if you're a do-it-yourselfer, really just left-click, drag and drop, and take a look at your off days and move the long days from the plan, which are usually Saturday, Sunday, to your days off work.
All right. Number 10, Quadrathlon from Instagram, aka Stuart Barrington.
Hi, Stuart.
Use the Garmin Fenix 5X, which I use as a daily watch. As such, it captures resting heart rate, HRV, or heart rate variability, sleep, steps, stress, weight, and also gives me some basic recovery metrics as I start a workout. Question is, do I need a Whoop? More Whoop questions.
All right. Do you need a Whoop or do you want a Whoop?
Yeah, there's a big difference.
Big difference. Sounds like you want a Whoop. And let me just back up a little bit. How to go about this? So a Whoop is going to measure what you think your Garmin is measuring. It's just going to do it better. A Garmin in the Fenix, I think, is really good for GPS, for running, for multi-sport. To be honest, I think Garmin has thrown in these features at the request of the marketing department to help sell more Fenixes. Now you take a device like Whoop, which was created to measure specifically sleep, HRV, and strain. That's all it does, and as a result, it's a better device. So, and
I think the app is the key there. I don't know about the Garmin's app, but I think it might give you the same data, but the key thing about the Whoop is that it has that app that tracks everything really nicely. It gives you much better analysis. I think
the Fenix, like when you get ready to do your workout, on the screen it just says you're recovered or you're not recovered. And honestly, it's.
But again, do we need any of these devices in general even?
Right. Do you need that device? No. You can still do the training and all that. Will the Whoop bring a better understanding of your recovery from your training than the Fenix? I think so. Is it worth it? I don't know. That's up for you to decide. I do find that athletes that are using the Whoop, and I have my athletes that I coach that use the Whoop, we talk about the data, not from a daily standpoint, because you can get into the weeds really quick about, strain and being in the red when you're not and when you shouldn't be. The biggest thing is it brings awareness to your lifestyle and how your lifestyle affects your training and vice versa. And I'll give you an example. So this morning I'm analyzing an athlete's power data and reading his post-activity comments, and he's in the red. And he was wondering why, because the training yesterday hadn't been that hard. And, you look at what really happened. He got 6.6 hours of sleep. The Whoop, that's not enough. We recommend 8, 9 is better. And a lot of people are like, well, and it is like, I can only get 6. It's like, well, I'm sorry, but that's how your lifestyle affects your training. You don't recover as fast.
The Whoop just shows you quantitatively.
Yeah.
And,
it doesn't care if you
right.
can or can't. Yeah. It's just going to say, sorry, 6.6 hours of sleep is not good enough. Yeah. And you're going to get that with the Whoop. And so he was in the red, and, HRV was low. Strain had been moderate, but it's not just the strain. It's your lifestyle. So, Stuart, if you want to dive into that and really kind of nerd out and maybe, see how your lifestyle is related to your training and vice versa, get the Whoop, and maybe you can ask us another question on a podcast about it.
Cool. All right. Next question from DJ Kevbo on social media. FasCat athlete from Brooklyn.
Hi, Kevin.
What does end of summer training look like for cyclists finishing road and not doing cyclocross or mountain bike in the fall?
Yeah, so all the roadies that are coming towards the end of the season, Labor Day is kind of the traditional end of the season. That's like 2 weeks, amazingly. And so there's an expression, all the hay is in the barn, just borrowing the phrase. Really, you're kind of as fast as you're going to be right now. So what a good training plan will do is leverage and maximize all the training you've done this summer, this past spring, this past winter, and really emphasize freshness. And by that, we're talking about more recovery days, lower training volume. You'll probably see one really sharp race-specific workout per week, for example, and then you're racing on the weekend. That racing is the training, so that's kind of also what we call our race and recover mode of training in our training plans. And then with regards to that hard workout, well, you're just going to see a race-specific interval workout. No more zone 2, no more sweet spot, to be honest. Since you race criteriums, it's going to be pretty heavy on the anaerobic work. If you're trying to peak for a race in Labor Day, you may see some Tabatas in there, the 2010s, the 40-20s. A lot of anaerobic work, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, 1 minute on, 1 minute off.
Sharpening the
sword. But what you won't find is that, 10, 12 hours a week that's building. What you're going to see is reduced training volume, maybe around 6 to 8. Really give shift the balance over to being really fresh, and that's where you're going to see maximal power outputs and kind of come on form. If you're looking at that performance manager chart, you're going to see your CTL intentionally going down by design from the prescribed training. And then what you want to see is that TSB, that training stress balance, going up. And that's where, because you only have like 2 more weeks of racing.
Cool. All right, Patrick, in our forum, will I be able to raise my FTP during the interval phase on a cyclocross plan? Or is the goal about being able to recover quickly to produce power? I've noticed my 20-minute power is plateaued, probably due to being over 50. My cycling spectrum is more of a sprinter, so my overall FTP hasn't been stellar.
Right. Good question. So, cyclocross performance is not defined by FTP too much. I mean, you still want to know it, and the athletes that have a higher FTP are generally going to do better than the athletes with the similar skills than the athletes with a lower FTP. However, we don't really look at that or measure that from these training plans. Rather, we're going to have you do your skills, and then we're really concentrating on anaerobic power, your ability and anaerobic capacity, your ability to go really hard, rest, do a skill, really hard again, on, off, repeatedly for 45 to 60 minutes. That's what's going to give you your best determinant of performance. And as such, your training plan is going to have a lot of anaerobic intervals, Tabatas, and a lot of skills work. You may see a bump up in your FTP from doing all that anaerobic work, because when you are pedaling as hard as you can for 20 minutes, you're deriving some of that power output from your anaerobic energy systems. So a lot of athletes, when they improve their anaerobic power, they see an increase in their FTP. But I wouldn't really mark that as a determinant of your cyclocross performance. What you can do, and this is what our workouts have, we start off, there's one workout, I do believe it's 2 sets, 4 by 1 minute on, 1 minute off. That is 8 minutes of anaerobic work. See if you can complete that workout strong. And then I think a couple weeks later, as a progressive overload, we have 2 sets of 5 by 1 minute on, 1 minute off. So that's 10 minutes, so 2 minutes more. But measure your power output from all 10 of those intervals, average them out, compare those to your 4-minute intervals. If your 1 minute average power is increased, then you can safely say my anaerobic capacity has improved, my anaerobic power has gone up. That's going to be a better measurement of your cyclocross performance than, say, like FTP.
Cool. All right, next question from Ivor. I will be doing the 18-week sweet spot, sweet spot training plan this winter. The weekend rides call for some long 4-hour rides, but I live in Wisconsin, so most of my workouts will be indoors on the trainer. I've heard you say not to spend more than 2 hours or so on the trainer for a workout. Main question, do I adjust my training or just suck it up and ride the 4 hours?
That's a good question, Cheryl.
Ivor.
I think her name is Cheryl Iverson. Her username, I think, is Ivor. So good question. The first thing that comes to mind is Wisconsin, winter, spring, summer. And there's nothing better than the long ride. These 4-hour rides, are beneficial for you. So maybe start that plan. Here's an idea. Maybe start that plan in March or April when your weather is getting better and you can do those 4-hour rides. And then that sets you up for a really good summer. And so that's what I would have an athlete in Wisconsin do. That's going to be different than an athlete in Southern California or Texas. Now, you may be like, well, this is what I was planning to begin in December. And this goes to the question of the timing and what to do and when. And so for the Wisconsin, upper Midwest athletes, anywhere that lives in a really crummy winter location, what you can do instead of, trying, to do 4 hours on a trainer or even just figuring out a substitute workout, lift weights. Lift weights in the off season. In the scientific literature, lifting weights is like building base, and it will help you increase your power output. And it's a wonderful thing to do from November through February. And you're not battling the trainer, you're not battling the weather, because you can lift weights indoors. And the other thing is you can lift weights at night or in the morning when it's dark and you couldn't otherwise ride. And that would be my first suggestion. So do like a 10-week resistance training program that we have, and then that segues into the 18 weeks. And you got it. It's the art of timing what to do and when. And then a lot of athletes that live in a cold weather climate, they choose a goal in March or April. And this kind of goes to like the thing we've podcasted last fall about choosing your goals and maybe suggesting, well, if you live in the upper Midwest, don't choose a goal that's in April because you're now climate challenged.
Yeah, exactly.
So what you can do, but if you still are doing like an oat route or a event that is at a different location, now maybe you're talking about a custom solution provided from hiring a coach or leveraging our coaching subscription where you can ask a question and get like a substitute workout in the event that it's blizzarding during that 4-hour ride.
All right. Number 14 from Jim in the forum. My question is about off-season weight loss. My goal for the season was to upgrade so I can get back to fighting it out with the Cat 2 in 1 field. I did that, and thanks for the help, by the way. Now that I can see my last 3 races, I want to start looking at upgrading the body for next season. Shedding a few kg seems necessary for me to compete at this level. Question, when should I start? After the postseason break, during the 18-week sweet spot, or some other time?
Jim, good question. Let me come at this from a couple different angles. The first angle being changing your body composition it's 24/7, 365. It's your lifestyle. It's the way you live. You don't like, or like, okay, I'm going to lose weight from, December through March. Because you will lose a little bit, but what you're talking about is kind of like changing your entire body composition.
Yeah.
Like before we went live, we were talking about how it took, Chris Froome and Geraint Thomas 5 to 6 years to lose weight to become Grand Tour winners. Same way with Wigo. And this is how all the European racers are. It takes years. Very few of them are born like Egan Bernal, like who's naturally, how much does he weigh? Like 110, 115?
Yeah, he's probably like, 45, 50 kilos or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if Chris Froome were a normal sized man, he would be like 155, 160, but I think he probably races at like 130, 135.
Froome might be 140, 150 because he's a tall guy.
Okay.
But still, again, I think that the key here is like, look at what Wiggins and Geraint Thomas were doing. They were winning gold medals on the track.
Yeah.
Big boys,
6 in 2012.
And so it took them a long time, and it's their job too. It's what they're doing for their career, basically, is to like, be 100% focused on this. So it's really, it's a slippery slope, dangerous to be trying to like lose that kind of weight in one season because, kind of what you're asking about, like when you should start. Really the last thing you want to be doing is trying to lose weight during a big sweet spot block or a big, ramp up for a race season because it's basically impossible to simultaneously lose weight and perform at a high level because you're, losing weight is catabolic. It's breaking down muscle and fat and it's really hard to fuel those really hard, intense workouts and races at the same time. And so those guys are doing it mainly in the off season. That's how they do it.
Yeah. Yes. And the I guess it was question number like 3 or 4 asking about the body fat composition. Yeah. He was saying he loses weight, but not body fat. If you're losing muscle mass that from dieting, that, like I said, that's bad. You don't want to do that. And, but during the off season, when your training volume is low, you're not doing intervals, you're not riding that much. That's when you can really dig in and lose weight from September through November. So Masters Nationals was last week. Yeah. Remember we podcasted last week. I said wish Gary good vibes. Well, he wound up winning.
Whoa!
Congratulations!
Awesome.
And then he went on to say, I need to weigh 10 pounds less next year. Well, Gary, the best time to do that is going to be after Labor Day, before Thanksgiving.
Right.
Because you know what happens between Thanksgiving and Christmas?
Yeah.
It goes out the window.
Well, and that's the problem. I think a lot of people, it's sort of counterintuitive because they're like, okay, the season's over. Now I can let myself go a little bit.
No, that's when you got to dig in.
Yeah, you have to be careful there because sometimes you can dig yourself a hole that it's hard to get out of if you're, hitting the beers a little bit too hard in the off season, or you're going hard at Thanksgiving, going hard at Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's like you have to be careful with that, especially depending on your age. I think it's but again, like the off season is the perfect time because, like you said, there's not a lot of intensity. Maybe you're doing some longer, more like fun rides, so that you're riding a lot more in that kind of fat burning zone 2 zone, and so that you can you have a little bit more of affordability to do that. But again, like we said in the other question, it's a lifestyle. You got to be winning in the kitchen 24/7, 365.
Yeah, it's not a yo-yo.
Yeah.
The athletes that get done with their last race in the next couple weeks and let themselves go till Thanksgiving and then try to start losing weight and then double down in January, they just go back to where they were the year before. They really never make any long-term forward progress. And then the other thing I'll say, the World Tour riders, when they show up to team camp December, January, they're at, in an ideal world, they're at their race weight. The guys that are doing this on a sustainable basis, because they've spent their off-season pre-camp at, working on that. Once they get to team camp, they usually go straight to racing. That's, they're not going to lose weight during the season. And those that try to do wound up not recovering and having, a poor season or losing form.
All right. Number 15 from Daniel. If your legs aren't there for the scheduled intervals, is it worth it to keep going or should you call it? I have 15 seconds on, 15 seconds off at 300 watts. I do the first set on target. On the second set, I am dying 1,000 deaths, but only hitting 285. Should I keep going? Are the only gains mental at this point?
There's a lot going on in this question, but I get where you're coming from, Daniel. The first thing I would look at is your power data, and this is covered in our coaching subscription. And I would want to know, you said the first set goes well, but the second set you're dying.
Drops a lot.
I wonder if you're going too hard in the first set. Using your power meter to pace your intervals properly training tip, we talk about going as hard as you can, but not so hard that you can't finish the last set as strong as the first set. So I would take a look at that first. The second thing I would take a look at is your recovery. And usually when we have you do interval days, it usually is following a recovery day. So we've set you up for success. So there's that. And then should I keep going? Now, this kind of goes to FTP, but then what pulls at FTFP is common sense. And if you truly are not recovered, you truly should stop and go home. But that would beg the question is, are you following the plan? Have you ridden too much on another day that, so your recovery got out of balance and, that you carried fatigue into that interval workout day and thus couldn't complete it. And then you ask at the very end, is it mental? There is, that we joke HTFU and, you gotta, dig in, and we always, kind of glorify suffering and all that. And that is true. If everything is gone right, if you've been on the plan, you're recovering, you're pacing these intervals properly. Yes, there is time in the latter half of the workout where you got to really dig in, bite the stem, and just suffer and get through it. And I don't know if that's the case. I would have to go in and look at your training plan and your data to answer any further. But those are just some of the things that we would, take a look at.
All right. Eli in the forum, 15 months ago, I started training for gravel races after not riding for years. This year, I've done a few 100-mile races and finished without a problem, but near last place. I've been following the gravel in-season plan. We'll be done with it following my last race of the season this Saturday. My FTP seems to be stuck around 220 watts for the last 9 months. What do I do this off-season to get that FTP up and finishing in the top half of the results next year?
Good question.
A lot of the stuff we've been talking about.
Yeah, this is just, you've asked the broad question of what has been covered in the previous 15 questions. It's got to lift weights in the off season.
Have a good base.
Build up a better, higher base, greater CTL.
Win in the kitchen.
More hours. Win in the kitchen. Absolutely. Recover more. Probably get on a plan, and train consistently.
Have
you've been doing the
season plan or something?
Yeah, year round. I mean, these days, most athletes are, in addition to their lifestyle, they're riding year round with the exception of a 2-week break, for example. And we have the resources and the plans to help you, do a good off season and all that. And that's honestly everyone that does that lifts weights, builds a bigger base, trains more consistently, wins in the kitchen, like you just said, does better. And that's the ticket for your higher results for next year.
All right, David, forum. I'm working with a 6 weeks of cyclocross plan. When should the plyo workout be done? Before or after the interval set, or can I split the workouts during the day?
Oh, yeah, good question. So do your intervals, and then when you pull back up into your garage or at your cyclocross park, just lay the bike down and just do your plyos right there. It only takes about 5 minutes.
Chamois on still.
Don't split up the workout. If you're at the cyclocross park with stairs, a park bench, a log, something like that. Just, knock those things out. By combining those two exercises together, you're going to force a greater physiological adaptation than delaying it or going to the gym or changing shoes and, going to your box jump.
Yeah, it's more specific to
But
the actual effort.
Yeah, do the intervals first. That's power sensitive. And then when you're fatigued, you can just make your legs feel like jelly with the plyos.
All right, next question from Brandon about the coaching subscription plan. Forgive me for the simplicity here, but I'm 2 years into cycling, so still learning a lot. What will you do with the power analysis?
We'll use it to answer your question better.
We'll use it to recommend modifications to a training plan. Then if I don't have a power meter, what would you analyze?
So a lot of times we get asked a question about, did they do this interval correctly? I mean, actually, just like the previous question, the athletes wondered about, should he harden up or call it? And the answer, the first thing I'm going to look at is the power data. And that's what's covered in our coaching subscription. And so we'll look at that. And then we'll look at how your data looks in relation to your whole training plan. It's not about just one workout. It's about your following the training plan as a whole. So we're going to go into your training peaks and take a look. Have you been following the training plan? Is there a bunch of red? Is it all green? Have you been doing well? And then we'll use that information from what a coach does when they analyze data to answer your question. And that's what we'll do with your power data. And if you don't have a power meter, we, maybe we'll take a look at, basically, how well have you been FPing? That obviously is a great place to start. And we'll look at heart rate data, heart rate data is pretty good for a lot of the workouts. And you just can't measure, like watts and FTP improvement and stuff like that.
All right, next question. Kim on the Sweet Spot Part 1 Basic. Hello, Kim Butler here from West Virginia. I'm a retired teacher of exercise physiology from Ohio University. Been racing on bikes, pool, running, karate for over 40 years, now 68. I signed up for 6 weeks of cyclocross, great workouts, but at my age, there's no way I could begin to do all of those suggested days in a row, so I'll have to modify a lot. At 68, I need many more recovery days in order to do harder workouts. I eat a mainly plant-based diet with shakes after workouts. I use air relaxed compression device, Mark Pro E-Stim, massages, Viper roller. That sounds like a torture device to me.
The Viper?
The Viper roller.
Oh, yeah, it's actually a really good device. It's like, have you ever seen the Navy SEALs carrying logs?
Oh, yeah.
In their training? The Viper is this long tube with handles on it.
Yeah, I've seen that.
For like these really good core workouts.
She gets 8 hours of sleep with a nap. So question is, could you modify workout plan for age appropriate plans? I found even that I need to swim on that I need to swim on recovery days in the pool with little or no kicking and not pushing off while hard to recover. I'll do some of your workouts, but no way I could do them every week.
Okay, Kim, great question. And thanks for being on our plan and asking us the question. So at 68 years old, it could be, I get it, where all the intervals, all the running. I think you just may need to be a little more patient with yourself in your recovery. Maybe amend the plan on your own to add more recovery days, maybe lessen the number of interval sets and reps. I did double check before we went on air. You did, buy the basic plan, which is 4 to 8 hours a week. But, you may need or want a custom solution where it's adjusted per your age. We do that a lot. Take out a coaching subscription and get like just a custom revision. And I get asked this question a lot, is like, how do you design a training plan for a master athlete? And the answer is you just have to adjust the training load to the anticipated recovery time and just be more patient, more recovery days, easier, shorter workouts. And, that's just the way it is. And one thing that jumps out at your question, though, is the swimming. And I would discourage that. And you may think it's for recovery, but if you really want to recover, before you think it's good for recovery, try laying on the couch for that afternoon. Try a massage. We have a great recovery tip on our website: float tank, yoga, massage, nap, going to bed early, basically chilling out. It's really hard for type A people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to film a YouTube video of me on the couch
Yeah.
soon. But, yeah, try that. Just the amount of energy it takes you to walk or drive to the pool, change, swim. And and I know you're retired and you may find that relaxing and everything. But I would just compare that to, an epic day on the couch.
Yeah.
And I would say that plus editing your plan to just be a little bit less.
All right. Getting to the closing questions here now. Number 20, FasCat athlete Dave Zink. He's doing Rebecca's Private Idaho stage race. Thanks for all the info on the baked potato. I think I have my plan dialed, but I'm going to do the full stage race. So I have 2 questions on the first 2 stages, which I think are the same as what you did last year. The official rules, question 1, the official rules for the stage race this year say that you can change gearing and tires, but must use the same frame for the 3 stages. So I'm planning to run some 45 mil tires on the first stage, which are the biggest I can cram in my gravel frame. But what gearing should I use? I can change the direct mount chainring on my 1x. Just how steep are the climbs on that stage? Number 2, I think I'll throw my 32 millimeter Gravel King slicks on for the TT hill climb. Does that sound right? Okay. So.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave. So tackling the first question about changing tires, I basically I just use the same tires and gear setup the whole time. I use 38 mil Gravel King SKs, and I think that's fine.
Can you do that? The rules allow you to change tires and wheel sets?
I think you can. I think that's what he's saying. But I just didn't want to bother with changing tires and wheels.
Gearing and tires.
You just have to use the same frame. Like you have to use a gravel bike.
Oh,
you can't use like a
frame.
mountain bike for the first stage and then change.
Got it.
I wouldn't necessarily change tires or gearing for any of them. I think you basically can get by with all of it in terms of, because at least for me, the hassle of changing stuff during the middle of a stage race is a no-no for me.
Yeah.
I want to be able to like chill and eat and rest and not worry about that stuff. I don't think the climbs aren't that steep on the first stage. There's a couple little punchers, but it's actually mostly downhill, I'd say. You kind of start going up this climb on like a fire road, and then you kind of turn onto some single track. It's pretty steep. I actually had to get off my bike for like a second just because it bottles up there, like it gets bunched up. But as long as you have, it depends on what you have right now, but I had a compact crankset in the front, 1132 in the back. That's fine. I think you could even get away with a mid-compact, but I wouldn't necessarily try messing with your chain rings on your bike. And I don't think you need 45 mil tires either. I don't think that is necessary. But if you
it's
feel
like smooth single track, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty smooth single track. Like there's no big roots or rocks. Like it's pretty flowy. So I wouldn't worry too much. And then number 2, I also think that 32 Gravel King slicks is a little bit ambitious for that, because the way that the stage race works is you have to actually ride out to the course, and the ride out to the TT course is pretty rough. It's pretty gnarly.
Is that part of the baked potato course?
No, it's a separate place.
Because if I do that, I would be on my 32. So I was asking from...
But not slicks.
No, not slicks.
Yeah, and
Right.
I also think you will be slipping around. Like you won't be getting very good traction on the climb with 32s, because it is still a kind of a dirt road, a little bit loose. It's not like super rocky. The ride out to it is, but I would recommend 35 mil SKs if that's what you're gonna do. Yeah, I think Josh Berry won last year, the TT, and he was on probably, I'm guessing, 35 or 38s with plenty of tread. So
okay.
I
get where you're coming from, Dave. Dave has been my secret agent for the Steamboat Gravel Recon.
Nice.
And he was the one that alerted me to Cow Creek, which is the section at like mile 134 to 138 that's horrendous rocks that would necessitate like a 35 or 38.
Yeah.
But I get where you're coming from, running a faster, lower rolling resistant tire for the TT and everything. Definitely some fun equipment. And
Yeah,
tire
for sure.
choices.
I mean, but again, you start the TT on like a kind of a steep uphill anyway, and there's some switchbacks and stuff. And I just think also just in terms of the general riding, like you have to ride back down it and you have to ride to there. And it's, I don't think that you will make that many gains with having a slick tire. So
I did this hill climb once at Redlands, or no, it was the Solano stage race. And I had this wheel set. It was so Gucci and light that at the top of the race at the finish line, I had to get a ride down.
yeah.
The wheels wouldn't the carbon fiber tubular brake pads and rim. Yeah. So it was silly.
All right, final question. John in the forum rode with John at the Oat Route.
Hi, John.
Mountain bike marathon, but on a single speed. How would one modify the marathon plan to deal with the unique cadences and power outputs for single speed? Or is this a whole new plan that needs to approach the training from a different angle?
Yeah, thanks for your question. The simplest answer is the training doesn't change. How you handle the training does. And what I would say is for that mountain bike marathon on a single speed, train on your single speed. Do the workouts on your single speed. Physiologically, you still are getting all the benefits of the training plan, and you're also adapting to the torque and the forces that a single speed forces you to do. And I think that would be the best training. So just spend most of the time on your single speed. And that's going to be the best way to train and adapt to what you'll face in your single speed mountain bike marathon.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone for all of your questions. I think we did it. That was marathon session.
What's the time on this?
We're at 1:11.
Not bad.
Not bad. Pretty quick. We just trying to hustle through because there's a lot to cover. But I think we covered a lot of different cool topics on that one.
Thank you everyone for submitting. That was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun reading the questions. I'm gonna give Jamie the question of the podcast with his Anakin Skywalker meme that he sent me. K-Dog, you weren't far behind. I had laughed a lot getting your question. So for everyone, for next time, we'll do this again in about 4 weeks. Bring some, make us laugh for sure. And no question is a bad question. And we took them a lot. Help at FasCatCoaching.com, in the forum and on social. If we missed your question, go to our forum. There's a big giant thread, which we covered a lot of these questions. You can ask there. We'll put the podcast there. And so you can listen to for everyone that's discovering this afterwards. And then, just subscribe and like, and then we'll do this again. And we'd love to take your question.
Cool. Well, we'll see all of you Steamboat Gravelers this weekend. And I hope the rest of you have a great weekend.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone.
Later.
Bye.